This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the third generation Moto G 2015 model. And again, it's a lot of fun for the money. It's $179 for the base model. That gets you 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of storage. Okay, that's not so much. But if you spend a bit more, $40 more, you can get it with 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of storage. You have a HD display here, 5 inches with Gorilla Glass, a swappable back here, just like the previous Moto G. So if you think this black is a little boring, or if you get the white one and you're kind of tired of it, you can swap backs on. You can get it customized. Has 4G LTE too. Works on both AT&T and T-Mobile in the US. It's unlocked, no contracts, no nothing. So that cheap price, no strings attached. And it also works on other GSM carriers in the United States as well. And there's going to be one that's compatible with Sprint / US Cellular / Virgin Mobile as well. Slightly different part number there. Okay, look at it now. So here it is, the Moto G. Third time around, we're up to the third generation now, and Motorola is really perfecting the affordable Android phone. Unlocked, so no carrier commitment involved here. This model that we have here is the GSM unlocked model, works on AT&T and T-Mobile, including 4G LTE, even has band 12 for T-Mobile, and it'll work on smaller regional GSM carriers. Now, Motorola is also working on a model that works on Sprint, US Cellular, and Virgin Mobile too, and that one's going to have a slightly different model number. This one is the XT1540, the LTE Sprint US Cellular Virgin Mobile one is going to be the XT1548. No Verizon model, no carrier offered models at this point. That could change in the future, we don't really know, but that's the way it is right now. So what do you get for $179? You get a 5-inch HD display. Now, it's not the world's brightest display. It's fairly colorful. The viewing angles are okay. It's IPS display protected by Gorilla Glass. They're not superb, but it's absolutely fine. In person, when you're using it, other than the usual glare that all smartphones have, it's a pleasant looking display. That's 294 ppi, so that's pretty good pixel density right there. You get a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 410 CPU clocked at 1.4 gigahertz with Adreno 306 graphics, so at the lower end of horsepower here as smartphones go. In fact, it's about 1/3 as fast as the flagships on synthetic benchmarks. But this phone just feels absolutely fine using it in day-to-day use because it's running clean Android Lollipop 5.1.1. That really helps a lot. No skins to bog it down. On the back here, you can get this with either black or white if you're just going to buy it at your store right there in the box, and the same goes for the face. It'll be either black or white to match the back. It's got a textured surface right here, but if you go to motomaker.com, you can order this with a variety of different colored backs and even accent colors. Accent color pretty much is going to change this color right here, so you can make it your own. Now, if you don't want to bother going through that and ordering it, you can also just get different shells. Now, Moto's done this before, and they're still doing it for 15 bucks. You can get replacement back covers. There's like 6 different colors that are available. And there's also the cover shell, which has a flip cover on the front for those of you who want to protect the face. That is $30. So you got colors like blue, raspberry, turquoise, crimson, charcoal for the flip shells, blue, licorice, white, raspberry, turquoise, and cabernet for just the back replacement shell. So you get the idea. The back is removable. Now, the last gen Moto G, it was actually a little hard to get the back off, and it made it easier, which is surprising because this one has water resistance now, and you think that might be even more heftily sealed, but you saw how easy that was to do. So we have a micro SIM, not a nano SIM card slot right there, and then we have a micro SD card slot, particularly important if you get the 8 gig of storage model, because after the operating system and associated files and stuff like that, you don't have that much storage space available. Now, if you spend $40 more, you go up to 2 gigs of RAM, and that's 16 gigs of storage. For $219, that's still a pretty nice deal there, and for those of you who want to install, particularly games, they tend to take up more space. That's worthwhile. If you want to put images and videos and stuff, you can put that on an SD card. So as I mentioned, this is water resistant. It is IPX7 water resistant. That means it can withstand up to 3 feet or 1 meter of immersion for up to 30 minutes. Now, Motorola says that doesn't mean it's going to work while it's immersed. The capacitive screens usually are a problem on these because water confuses them. So they say don't use it while it's underwater, and don't go swimming with it. Don't apply pressurized water to it. So don't squirt it with your garden hose with the nozzle on the jet setting, for example. It's water resistant, but not super duper crazy water resistant. So if you accidentally drop it in the, oops, gross, toilet, for example, you should be okay. If you get it splashed when you're out in the rain, not a problem either. And you should make sure that the cover is snapped on everywhere. And that includes around here, there's little snappy points right around our camera, which happens to be a 13 megapixel camera with a two-tone LED flash, as you can see here. This little dimple right here is just for your hand-holding comfort. So that's the same camera that's on the Nexus 6. It's a pretty good camera, but we'll talk about the camera more later. There also is a software reminder that's always here, and it tells you check your back cover to make sure it is well fitted, because if it is not well fitted, it is not going to resist water. We have a front speaker. We have dual mics on this. The dual mics help with voice quality. Voice quality on this phone is quite good. Motorola is really good, actually, at voice quality. They've been making phones, well, forever. So in terms of call quality, we tested this on both AT&T and T-Mobile. Nice and clear calls. Average call volume. Definitely a nice voice phone. In terms of controls, you got your volume control on this side right there, and we have the power button right there. Not too much going on. That's all normal stuff. Bottom has the micro USB port that is for charging, and also if you want to do data transfer. And on the top, we have the headphone jack, and you can see one of the microphone holes right there as well. It's a curvy phone. It has a distinctive Moto look. It feels nice in the hand. It's also a pretty reasonable size. These days, 5 inches is considered not too big a phone. So it's comfy to hold. It's pretty sturdy feeling. Certainly this kind of back absorbs a lot of impact, and got Gorilla Glass on the front. Again, for the price, not too bad at all. Since this is a lower end phone in terms of price, although not all the features are terribly low end, i.e. the camera and the battery capacity is LT, but you're only going to get single band Wi-Fi 802.11n, no dual band Wi-Fi AC, so those of you who have Wi-Fi AC networks, N's not bad, it's fine. Single band can be a little bit of a problem, like if you're using this near the microwave and suddenly you notice your YouTube stream pauses, that would be why, because microwaves are on 2.4 gigahertz. Bluetooth also is, so sometimes you run into a little problem if you're using a Bluetooth device, particularly things that use more data like Bluetooth headsets or headphones or speakers, that sort of thing. No NFC here. High-end phones don't usually get it. I don't think a lot of people are really using NFC a lot, so that's not exactly the end of the world. You do get the usual GPS with GLONASS. You have Bluetooth 4.0 inside as well. And inside, as you saw, it was sealed inside there. It's not removable. It's under a plastic molded shell here, but we have a very large battery considering the size of the phone and the horsepower inside, since the Snapdragon 410 is not a big power consumer. We have a 2740 milliamp battery in here. That means that your, relatively speaking, budget-friendly, affordable phone is really going to be hard to kill in a day of use. I mean, if you're going to play Asphalt 8 all day long, racing game or something like that, you could. I'm not saying you can't, but with average use for most of us, making some phone calls, doing our emails, social networking, taking pictures, some videos, streaming some YouTube or Netflix or something like that, it is going to make it through the day absolutely not a problem at all. In fact, for a lot of people, this is probably going to make it 2 days if you use it with light to average kind of use. In terms of horsepower and performance, like I said, it feels fast enough for everyday tasks, all the things that I mentioned. It's not going to score super high in benchmarks. I mean, it's $179. It probably, if this is the 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of storage model, if you went for the 2 gig model, that would help with multitasking. So those of you who like to run a lot of apps, you might want the 2 gig model. Anyway, our 1 gig of RAM model here, you can see single score on Geekbench 3, 527. 1565 on the multi-core test. That is around half of what the closer to flagship level Android phones would score. Now on 3D Mark right here, you can see it's a little small, not that easy to see, but we scored 4399. Oh, it almost made it to 4400 on 3D Mark, and this is the Ice Storm Unlimited test. So that's about 1/4 of what the flagships do. Now, for Antutu, it scored 22,861. That is 1/3 to 1/2 of what higher-end phones would score. SunSpider JavaScript tests where lower numbers are better. It scored 1430, which is not so different from the previous generation Moto G So no, you're not getting the fastest kid on the block, but you're getting one that actually works just fine given the price. Again, you're not expecting to have the world's fastest phone, are you, when you're spending less money? In terms of speeds, here are two of our more recent tests. Both of these were on AT&T, a little bit lower than average among smartphones on AT&T's network. Now that probably has more to do with the fact that carriers actually optimize the phones that they sell, and their network detects and recognizes them and gives them certain tweaks and sometimes to the settings to get a little bit better performance. So sometimes unlocked phones don't score quite as high, but that's still a respectable set of numbers right there. Again, it also works on T-Mobile too for 4G LTE and also, of course, 3G. Listen to those speakers, huh? We're testing out YouTube Playback right here with our Windows 10 walkthrough we're using. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is Windows 10. This speakers is the final version here. About 66%. Those of us who were in the Windows Insider program got to try it out early, and we're getting the final build about 2 weeks before the rest of the world will be able to get it on July 29th. Now, we've looked at Windows 10 a couple. So, pretty decent audio there. Obviously, it can handle playback just fine. Now, let's take a look at the cameras. Now we're in the camera app, and we have our display brightness set to maximum because it's showing us the view through the viewfinder, so things are a little bit dimmer already because of that. It's super simple when you start out because Motorola does the side swipey thing. Standard Google stuff. You can switch to video mode right there. It can record 1080p video. So can the rear camera. It has an f2.0 rear lens, f2.2 for the front. Both cameras do 1080p video. Both cameras do automatic HDR, and that's how you swap from the front to the back camera. And if you want to get to your settings, there it is, your standard googly look right there. We have HDR automatic. You got your flash control. You can have touch to focus, touch exposure. Panorama mode is available as well. Timer mode. You can tap to focus. Just as easy as that. And switching to the front camera again is like that. So you're not going to see a huge raft of settings for the camera like you do on some higher-end Android phones, but honestly a lot of people like to keep it simple, and as long as the pictures are good, which they are, and I'll show those to you. You can swipe in to get to gallery, just like that. There's the front camera, and that's a not very good light. That's a pretty good picture for a front camera, a 5 megapixel camera right there. Moto's pretty smart. If they're going to increase the features on their affordable phone, they're going with the things people care about, which would be camera quality these days and battery life. They already had the display down pretty well with the last generation one. And testing out that HDR mode there, yeah, it wasn't very effective. There's still a lot of darkness in the shadows. Some flowers outdoors here. Now, to handle the light exposure pretty well, it's not whiting out any of the flower areas on a bright sunny day. That's pretty impressive. And a nice amount of detail and color retention there, and the leaves look pretty natural. I mean, yeah, Motorola never used to have the nicest of cameras, but they have really improved here. That's pretty, right? Beautiful color saturation and detail. It's not losing anything, even though there's a lot of color saturation. You can see the detail in the petals and all around the center of the flower. That is pretty cool. Next, we're going to test out a little gaming to see if it can handle Asphalt 8, which is one of the more demanding 3D racing games. Of course, the folks that make that game do optimize it so it plays on a variety of different kinds of devices as well. So we'll see how it does now. Go, dodge, dart, go. Not getting every bit of ever-loving detail in the game, but it's pretty nice looking. And so far it's been pretty smooth. Let's use a little nitro and speed up the game and see how it handles the frame rates. That's looking fine. So there you go. Your basic Moto G 3rd generation can play games like this pretty well. Now, in some demanding games, especially ones that aren't tuned as well to work on a variety of devices, you might notice a little bit of lag here and there when you're playing. Not saying it's going to be perfect for every game, but this is pretty promising performance. So there it is, gaming on the Moto G, 3rd generation, Asphalt 8. So that's the Moto G. Moto keeps doing it. You know, a lot of companies are trying to come out with affordable Android phones this year, which is a wonderful thing. There haven't been that many flagships, really. There have been several affordable ones. Like I said, the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3, the Asus Zenfone 2, for example, and some ones that carriers offer to. Of course, those aren't unlocked. They do involve carrier relationship there, but still, starting at $179. Granted, it doesn't have as high in the specs as those, but it's a very usable phone. The speed is decent on it. 5 inches is a pretty good universal popular size. Performance is fine on it. Battery life is very good on it thanks to the relatively large battery that's in this phone. And you can even order it in a bunch of different colors if you like. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and subscribe to our YouTube channel.